Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? When we sent out a promo on this, one of the things we mentioned that I was going to talk about is how to find your customers and how to make the first contact with them. So that's going to be the focus of my presentation tonight. That's my Isn't Jim Wonderful slide. Some of the books and recorded programs that I've created over the years. But this is our agenda. That's what I'm going to talk about. Who are your customers? Then we're going to explore the difference in marketing and selling and how you can choose the markets that are not natural to you, how you can penetrate those, and we're going to talk about this dreaded topic right here. Matter of fact, let's just get that one out of the way. Cold calls. Shame on whoever came up with that idea in the first place. Cold calls. You know what we need you to do? We need you to learn about the product and then go out there and make cold calls. Now, how many of you find that to be an intellectually enlightened idea? Nah. If you're going to make a call, why should it be cold? You say, well, we're going to make them warm calls. No, that's juvenile. You make new calls. Period. New calls. They shouldn't be cold. They can be, but I wouldn't do it that way. New calls, not cold calls. And at the end of the sales presentation, when you're asking someone to buy and they think this is a good idea and they decide they're going to do it, what do you call that? Closing. Okay? That's the popular term for that phase in selling. Closing. If you look up close, what does it mean? To shut, to exclude, to finalize, right? It means it's over. Case is closed. This is a closed market. I'm sorry, we're closed. Did you close that guy? No, he was still wide open when I left. Wrong word. Right idea, wrong word. All it is confirming the purchase. So why not call it confirming the sale? Because it's not closing a sale, it's opening a relationship, beginning a service cycle, right? So lose the word closing as it relates to selling. Call it confirming, because that's what it actually is. And, except in real estate, there is a process called closing. And that's different. That's not about getting someone to say yes. That's about going through a very specific process to confirm all the details and transfer ownership, right? Okay? And then the other one is cold call. Never, ever, ever make a cold call again for the rest of your life. Make plenty of new calls. Make plenty of calls on people who've never met you and have no reason to even wonder that you exist. But make those calls well and consider them what they are, new calls. Okay? That's my lecture for the night. Now then we can talk. Okay? So who are your customers?
People who need your services.
People who need your services. Okay, that's one way to look at it. What's another way to determine who are your customers? If the questions get too hard, let me know. How do you determine who are your customers?
Jim?
Yes?
Well, first of all, I think you need to research and find out who might want to take advantage of your product, because I believe that the customer who may need your product isn't even aware that they need your product.
Okay, a lot of times, Kitty Dill says, a lot of times people who need your product or may need your product aren't even aware of that. So you need to research the marketplace, find out where the needs are, and find a match between what you're able to provide and what they're needing or wanting, or would want if they knew it was possible. It's like my friend Daniel Burris. He wrote a book that's over here in the Cathcart Institute lending library. That's for Huddle Campus, by the way. For the CLU Westlake campus and Huddle Campus, the co-working space that we're in right now, that's a lending library that my company donated with about 130, 140 current business books, business psychology, motivation, things like that. And one of those is Daniel Burris's book, Flash Forward. Daniel Burris is a technological forecaster. And he says most people don't really know what they want until they know what's possible. And if they don't know what's possible, they're going to ask for too little. Isn't that the truth? If they don't know what's possible, they'll ask for too little. That's a keeper, by the way. And you're going to get a copy of all the slides, but not the quotes. You're going to have to write those down personally. Manual labor. Sorry about the hard work, but that's yours. Okay? So, how do you know who are your customers? I would say they're the customers you want to connect with and can justify doing so. In other words, people you'd love to do business with, and you've got a reason for offering your services or your product to them, because you can make their life better. See, I believe the purpose of business is to make the world better, and if it's not, then it's not going to survive very long anyway. But any business that truly makes our lives better tends to endure if it's well run. Okay? So what's the purpose of business? Well, business is a form that humans create to allow them to provide services that perpetuate the growth cycle, right? That allow life to flourish. Okay? So the purpose of business is to make life better. And you say, no, the purpose of business is to make a profit. No. A product of business is profit. And if you don't produce a profit, guess what you get to do next? Something else. That's right. Because you're going to be bankrupt, or you're going to be broke, or you're going to be out of business, or run out of something. Because you've got to make a profit. See, profit is to a business as blood is to a body. Profit is to a business as blood is to a body. Blood is not the purpose of a human body. But take the blood out, and there is no need for the body anymore. It's all done. Money is not the purpose of a business. But you take the money out, and the business no longer exists. A business is a group of people mutually dedicated to a particular cause, goal, or path, and doing commercial activities that perpetuate that. Okay? So you might say, well, Jim, that's philosophy. Let's talk about specifics. Let's talk about actions. If you don't get the thinking right, the actions won't follow the right path anyway. You've got to have the right premise underlying what you're doing. So the purpose of business is to make people's lives better. How do you personally make people's lives better? That answer needs to be real clear in your head and in your articulation of it. You need to be able to tell other people easily how you make their lives better and why it's worth paying for. Would you agree with that? Yes. I'm from the South. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. Could I get an amen to that? Amen. There we go. Okay. All right. So your customers are the people that can benefit from what you do and the people you would like to be doing business with. Okay? Was there a question over there? I saw a hand go up and then back down. Or maybe I saw my reflection in the glass. Anyway. All right. We're going to go further into that, by the way. Marketing versus selling. A lot of people use those words interchangeably. I don't. Marketing has to do with the market. Selling has to do with that sale. Okay? So it's a difference between group and individual, or region and organization and person. The difference is this. Marketing is generating demand for what you have. Selling is converting that into purchases. Does that help? Okay? Selling is converting it into purchases. So anything you're doing that's one-on-one that is not resulting in a sale is simply a marketing activity or a social activity. If it's directly related to getting a sale, producing a purchase, then that's a selling activity. So that's the difference in those two. And we have natural markets. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. I went to Hall High School. I went to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. I know a whole lot of people back there. And I went back recently for my, I know it hurts to say this, 50th high school reunion. 50th high school reunion. And some of the other students can still walk. And it's amazing going back to the 50th. The 10th, 20th, 30th, those are different. 50th is something special. But I went back there, and that's a natural market for me. These are people I already know. They know me, so I could easily make connections with them. But they might not be a good customer for me, because maybe they don't need what I've got to offer. I might know them, might have access to them. They may have the money. But if they don't need it, I shouldn't be calling on them. But you've got natural markets. You've got natural markets geographically, the people right around where you live and work, people that you see all the time. You've got a natural market genetically, in your family circle, whether that family is a genetic family or a chosen family that you've adopted through many years of relationship with them, okay? So there's lots of ways you could define a natural market to you. There are people that just naturally do business with the people that do what you do. Okay, so that's a natural market. Natural market you have access to already, so you don't have to worry about the usual things. A chosen market is where you say, I don't know a soul in that group or in that organization or that region or that industry, but I sure want to do business with them. So you move from Little Rock, Arkansas to LA and you decide, what's LA known for? Entertainment. Okay, I want to work in the entertainment business. Well, I didn't particularly, but I could have made that choice. I would have had no connections, but if I was intelligent about the way I approached that market, I could have cultivated very easily some inroads, and I could have made that a big, robust market for me. Yes? Okay, so could you. So think about your markets in terms of who do you already have access to? Who already knows and on some level trusts you so that you've got the chance to tell your story, bless you. And then think about it, who do you choose? Start a separate column in your notes. Who do you choose to go after? Who would you love to do business with? Do you want to work in the medical world? Do you want to work in education? Do you want to work in the corporate world? Do you want to work in government? Name it. Financial services, real estate, whatever. You can choose that and in a fairly short period of time, penetrate that market and cultivate a real nest of business there. All right? Profiling the market. We're going to talk more about each of these things as we go through. And by the way, what you're going to get at the end of this program is this DVD. It's a 1 hour and 7 minute speech that I gave in Las Vegas to 3,000 people. It was a few years ago, so you'll see a little bit more dark hair in there. But 3,000 people. It's a 3-camera shoot, so it's well produced. Standing ovation talk at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. A lot of fun to listen to and a lot of profound ideas in there. And the DVD has chapters. So you can skip from chapter to chapter like you can in a movie. And at the same time, there are 19 radio broadcasts in here that are just audio. And those are programs that I did on radio shows talking about the various aspects of selling. The title on this says Relationship Selling in a New Era. The actual topic of this speech is how do you cultivate and sustain a sales culture in any organization? How do you cultivate and sustain a sales culture? So everyone at the end of the program, I'll have one of these for you. And be happy, if there's a way to sign it, I'll autograph it for you. But I'll be happy to chat with you and give you one of these. And that's a $95 retail product. So that's just part of the package here. The other is this item, this little card. It's a laminated card that I created to go with my book, The Acorn Principle, which became an international bestseller. And it shows on the cover a tree as an organizational chart, talking about a business as a living system. And then on the inside, it has 15 powerful ways to grow your business this year. This is a discussion guide for you to use with your team or your family or your colleagues. So you take one of these 15, put your finger anywhere on there. Okay, that's number 5. Grow your freedom and flexibility. And I got to get my glasses on to read this print, but here's what item number 5 says. Have a low inventory of materials, high availability to deliver, high inventory of sales to come, stay financially light on your feet, and grow your savings and investments. So that's grow your freedom and flexibility. What you do is you take that item, if that's the one you're choosing to discuss, and with your colleagues, you ask the following questions. What's working well for us right now in that? What's not working well? What's missing? Who could help? If we got all the breaks, how good could it be? What one action could we take right now that would really make this better? who should be the person who takes that action? If they don't take that action, then what could we do? And how does this improvement relate to our other overall goals? And how would the organization we'd like to become do the things we're about to do? So it's a discussion tool that you use that process to go through each of these 15 questions. I guarantee you, if you do those 15 discussions, it will transform your world. It absolutely will. So those 2 items we have for you, and then of course we'll email to you, as long as we've got your email address, we'll email to you or email you a link to download the ebook on finding the buyers and the slides from this presentation. Okay? So there's lots of goodies for you there. You and I make choices. Evan, how are you? The founder of Huddle Campus, Evan Forster. This co-working space was his idea. And Cal Lutheran got behind it and made it a reality. What a cool thing. You make choices that indeed select the future you get to live. And when you choose the mindset that you're going to approach the world with, that mindset leads you into certain actions. If you change the mindset, the actions change, right? Okay? So the way you've chosen to think leads to certain predictable actions. Those actions, sustained over time, become habits. Those habits, when observed by other people, generate a reputation that you get known for, good or bad. You're known for that. Your reputation determines which doors open for you and which doors don't. And your relationships determine the size of your potential future. Does that make sense to you? Okay. And it works in reverse. You can say, well, I don't know what mindset I need, but I want, Walt Disney says, I want to create the happiest place on earth. Okay. If he was going to create the happiest place on earth, knowing he'd been bankrupt a couple of times and was primarily a cartoonist and a movie maker and not a theme park builder, what could he do? Well, he had to reach out to other people. So if he wants to create the happiest place on earth, the coolest theme park in the history of humanity, who does he need to know? What if he doesn't know them? That's not the point yet. Who does he need to know? So you start listing all the types of people you need to know. And then you find who the individuals are, and you list the names of the people you need to know. And then you start drilling down and saying, who knows him or her? What could I do that would make their life better? In any small way. Okay? And then you start cultivating those relationships. Well, if you know who you need to know, you also know what reputation you should have if you want those doors wide open for you. So how do you get that reputation? Habits. What kind of habits? Business habits, communication habits, personal habits, interpersonal habits. Right? Okay? So you think about the habits and then you ask yourself, okay, which actions should I be taking every single day so that I'm assured that they will result in the habits I need so that I get the reputation that opens the relationships that brings me my future? And if I have actions that I need to take, how do I need to think so that I naturally do those actions? See, if you become the person who would have the future you want, the future will be the natural byproduct. Let me say that again. If you become, trait by trait, quality by quality, the person who would have the future you want, the future you want will be your natural byproduct. See, it's kind of like becoming a magnet for only the things you want. You turn on that magnetism and those things start their way toward you. And if you don't interrupt that mindset and go off on fear and doubt and criticism and hatred and things that interrupt the energy flow, things keep coming your way. The minute you set a goal, the minute you articulate a dream, that dream starts its way toward you. And as long as you sustain the energy in your mind, in your heart, in your actions that would attract that, then it'll keep coming your way. Don't know when it'll get here because the time frame's not within our control. But I do know that system, whatever that is how the universe seems to be wired. And I've seen that over 39 years of doing what I do. Okay? The causation chain, that's what I call that. This is me on Mount Allen, which is Sandstone Peak over here, between here and Malibu. 3111, I think, is the feet above sea level there, the highest point in the Santa Monica Mountains. And I'm part of a group called the Heartbreak Hiking Fools. And we are kind of crazy about it. This morning we did 5 miles of forced march to the top of China Flats up a trail that the bicyclists call Suicide, and got up there exhausted and dripping with sweat and out of breath, and caught our breath, and then went to coffee and just started the day already knowing we'd paid our dues physically so we can do whatever we want from there. Eat the chocolate anyway. But it's not, being on top of the mountain is not the payoff. The payoff is being back at home knowing you'd been on top of the mountain. In other words, knowing you had pushed through the pain, you had endured the tiredness and the muscle aches, and you had gone on to the point that you had chosen to get to. And then when you get back and you relax and shower and meet the day, you start the day already liking yourself better, believing in yourself more, and knowing that you've started a process of positive action that'll show up in all the other things you do, business-wise and otherwise. Okay? So it's not the reward, it's the motive behind it. What's the motive? To live abundantly, to live fully. I love the passage in the Bible, John 10:10. Jesus says, I have come that they would have life and have it more abundantly. Well, take that out of a religious context. That's exactly what I'm about in my business. To help people live more abundantly. Because the more you live abundantly, the more I benefit, either directly or through a bank shot. Indirectly. Think about that. If you and I choose to live a small fraction of the life we could have lived, who loses? We do. Who else? Every single person we could have served. Every single person our idea could have helped. Every single person whose pain could have been lightened by our presence in their world. We've got a responsibility to be the most and best person we can be, I believe. I think it's an obligation, and I think it's our duty. So that's where I'm coming from in all this. When you find meaning in what you do, when you think at that level that I've been talking about there, you bring more of yourself to the table. You put more value in what you do. This was a privilege I had a couple of years ago. I was in Bogota, Colombia, doing a speaking engagement for the Fundación Oportunidad. And the Opportunity Foundation there provides funds for the kids in the barrio to come to a real school, to come and get uniforms and have a clean environment with supportive, encouraging people, knowing even that they're going to go home to a pretty abusive and ugly neighborhood at night. But during the day, those kids are in a world that's the kind of world you would want to live in. And so that's what that was all about. And they said, Jim, before you speak to our group, we want you to come to the school. I guarantee you my speech was twice as good. Twice as good after I left that experience. I mean, just look at the joy in those faces. And they're not afraid. And they're not doubting themselves. I love that. I love that. So when you find meaning in what you do, you bring more value to what you do. Years ago, I was in Atlanta, the airport, at Hartsfield International Airport. And I was in the food court between the concourses. And there must have been 10,000, maybe 100,000 people going through there when I was there that day. It was a mob. And I forced my way through the mob over to the little food court area where I could get a muffin and some coffee, and I did so. And I was watching the people, and I saw a busboy, and he looked like this. And he'd go over to the tables, and he'd drag his feet. And he'd pick up the trash and put it on a tray. And he'd wipe off the table. And he'd go over and he'd dump the trash. And he'd put away the tray. And he'd go to another. I'm getting depressed watching this guy. And I'm thinking somebody ought to do something. Because it's just sad. And so I decided I would do something. And I went over and I tapped him on the shoulder. And he recoiled like he was getting in trouble or something. And he said, yeah. And I said, what you're doing sure makes a difference. He said, no, I didn't. What did you say? I said, what you're doing sure makes a difference. Huh? I said, look at this place. I said, if you weren't cleaning these tables, it wouldn't be 5 minutes, there'd be trash everywhere. He said, that's right. And I said, what you're doing makes a difference. It matters because you clean this place up. And you keep it clean and it makes it sanitary, it makes it pleasant. People like to come here. If you weren't doing what you do, people would not come here and it would be unsanitary. So what you're doing matters. Just thought I'd say, thanks for doing it. See ya. And I walked off. Now I'm walking away and he's in shock. Seriously, no one had spoken to him like that, I'm sure, in quite some time, if ever. And so I'm walking away and I glance back after I've gone about 10 feet and I swear he's grown 6 inches. He did not become serviceman and say, good morning, welcome Ted to the food court. Looks like you could use some fiber today. I'll be right back. Nothing like that happened. All he did was he went from negative to neutral. But what do you bet? For the balance of his shift, he did his work a little bit better. What do you bet for the balance of his shift, he felt better about himself and handled difficulties more smoothly? Question. What did I do? Anyone? What did I do?
Encouragement.
I encouraged him. Okay, what else? Pardon?
Gave him meaning.
I pointed out the direct connection between his behavior, Matt, and the value other people got from it, which was a way of adding meaning to what he was doing by highlighting the meaning. In other words, I reminded him of something he obviously knew. I mean, it's not rocket science. He knew that what he was doing made a difference. He just didn't care about it or think about it because it wasn't in his head. He was just doing what he was forced to do because he's got to make a paycheck, right? When we're reminded of how what we're doing matters, we bring more of ourselves to the activity. And I think we ought to be reminded daily. And I think the more often we remind ourselves and others of the value of what we're doing, the more everybody feels connected. Look at the organizations that are thriving. Look around, read the business publications and see the ones they praise. Everybody from Zappos to Apple to, you name it. All the usual suspects. What you'll find is very encouraging environments, very relaxed and creative in many cases, like this one where you can write on the walls and move the chairs around and reconfigure everything. And some are very regimented. But the one thing that's clear in those organizations is everybody knows what they're doing matters. I practiced this in my own little company when we were down in San Diego and I had a handful of employees. I had a mission statement. And it said, our mission is to develop and effectively market an ever-improving line of top-quality products and services designed to enhance business people's effectiveness in the areas of sales, management, and communication. Doesn't it? No? That's about the way it affected my staff. And I asked Susie one day. Susie was my assistant. I said, Susie, what's our mission? She said, it's that thing that hangs over the copier. I was kind of going for, what does it say? She said, I don't know, it's too long. Too long? So we went through a discussion at our next staff meeting, and we came up with a working mission that did the job much more effectively. It said, we exist to make life better for people profitably. Why profitably? Because that's the only way you can keep on doing it. Otherwise, you have to become a nonprofit or find a sponsor or something, right? So to make people's lives better profitably. And every day that I thought of it, I'd ask my staff, how does what you're doing right now help someone else? How does it make someone's life better? Well, Matt needs this because if it's not accurate, he can't do his job well. Because he has to go do the research again on his own. So I'm making Matt more productive. Cool. All right? How does what you know, and I'd ask each person, and we reminded each other of that. And then we made it a habit to tell stories about how we had helped people. I think that's a great lack in the business world today. I think the business world and non-business world, organizations need to encourage storytelling. We need to... Testimonials, yes, but more than that. We need to tell each other stories about what we did that worked. And let the enthusiasm show. You know, like, John, you and Bob just installed that outdoor television for that couple over there. And just changed that patio to a whole new environment for them. Tell us about that. Oh, well, man, it was, it's so difficult because we didn't know how we were going to mount this thing, and we're thinking we don't have the right equipment, and gee, and then Bob says to me, hey, what if we put a bracket back there? God, I could have thought of that. Well, we did it, and then we realized we needed to change the seating around and the lighting around to make this work better, and then the client was there, and he said, oh my God, this has opened up a whole new set of possibilities. We can start entertaining in ways we never did it here before. And you should have seen the glow coming out of this guy. It's okay, thank you very much. Next. How would the rest of the staff feel hearing someone tell that story that way?
Energized.
Yeah, energized and proud of what they do for their clients. That's a big deal. That's not a trivial little item. I think that matters a ton. The purpose of what you do. This is a favorite photograph of mine. That's the opening ceremonies of the USA Special Olympics. In Omaha, Nebraska, in the year 2010, 13,000 people in the audience, 3,800 special athletes. I had the privilege of being their opening keynote speaker. Yeah, nice. And I came in with the Arkansas delegation behind the flag, marched in, 176 of us, 176 people from Arkansas. And wow, and the energy was just overwhelming. And all 13,000 people were there to encourage and support the athletes. And when I stepped on the stage, in front of Olympic gold medalists and war heroes and TV personalities and the swimsuit edition cover model for Sports Illustrated and her husband Andy Roddick, Brooklyn Decker and Andy Roddick, they were there. And just people like that. And the Kennedy and Shriver family, I thought, me? Really? Me? Okay. But I felt so privileged and honored to be in that position. And I said to them, folks, I've never seen a more motivated audience in my life. You're all here out of love and support and encouragement and belief in each other. And I cannot imagine a more positive place to be on the face of the earth. And it really was true. Because everybody was there to make life better for people. Every single one of them, and you ought to be too. Yes? Yes. Yes. Thank you. I do tend to evangelize a bit. Okay? Back to our agenda. Okay? Who are your customers? We're going to get more and more close to that. We talked about marketing versus selling. Let's talk about natural and chosen markets. So, select a market you want. Okay? You decide, I want to go after the health and wellness market. Okay. Who is in the health and wellness market? We're going to profile the market real quickly. Who's in it?
Chiropractors.
Chiropractors. Who else?
Chinese medicine doctors.
Okay. Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, right? Who else?
Nutritionists.
Nutritionists.
Holistic healthcare.
HHPs.
Cannabis shops.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yes, right. As a matter of fact, medical cannabis, right? Okay, who else? Fitness instructors. Who else? Pharmaceuticals. Doctors. Nurses. Healthcare clinics. Fitness clubs. Pardon?
Yoga teachers.
Yoga teachers. Think there's any money in any of that? Absolutely. There's billions to be had, right? Now the second question would be, if that's the chosen market you want to go after, Why? What do you like about them? Well, they got money. No, everybody's got money on some level. That money's no reason to choose a market. They help people. And if that resonates with you, that's a great reason to be connected with them, because you both share that underlying cause of we're here to make life better in a specific way, right? Okay? What else do you like about it? Well, you might like the atmosphere in medical facilities or in fitness facilities or in wellness and nutrition facilities. You know, choose your sub-market, because there's thousands of markets within what we just described, right? And you can choose your specialty as surgically or as broadly as you want to. Next question. What do they need that they're not getting as well as they could get it? And then the next question is, how can you bring that to them? Okay? So you just start thinking about, who is this person? What does this person need? Do I have any connection with anything or anyone that can help provide that need? If so, is there a way to make a profit from that? Great. If not, is there a sponsor that would pay for that anyway? Then I'll go connect with the sponsor and I'll bring it that way, right? So that's one way to approach a chosen market. But first you've got to profile the market. You've got to know demographically, where are they? In what numbers? How many of them are in LA? How many of them are not in LA? How many of them are concentrated in, say, Santa Fe, New Mexico, or Sedona, or someplace like that? You know, you've got to find out demographically and geographically, where are they? How many are there? What are their ages? What are their genders? What are their specialties? And so forth. So get all the numbers you can get on the market. And then next, psychographics. In other words, what are the numbers on how they think and how they feel? How many of these people are of this school of thought versus that school of thought? You know, like you could take chiropractic. Chiropractic versus osteopathic medicine. What's osteopathic medicine? Well, it's doctors that have to go through the whole MD curriculum and learn the spinal manipulation part that the chiropractors learn. Okay, so they get overtrained for their chiropractic work. But they've got different schools of thought. And it's interesting that the osteopaths, who are fully trained MDs, but they're designated DO because it was the osteopathic medical school instead of a standard one, okay? They joke with each other when one of them gets injured. My wife used to work at an osteopathic college, I know this. So they joke with each other. If one of them got injured one day and the other tried to help him, he said, no, I want a real doctor. So, you know, psychographics. How do they think? How do they feel? What are the unique things we can learn like that? And then once you get a good, clear picture, a good, clear understanding, beginning understanding of your market, isolate the market and then surround it. Now, what I mean by surround it is, let me back up. I thought I was going to a different slide there. What I mean by surround it is everywhere they look, you want them to see you. Everywhere they read, you want them to read about you or from you. Everywhere they listen, you want them to hear you. Everywhere they go, you want them to run across you. You want to be omnipresent in their world. Surround them. This is before you know a single soul. Not one person in that market. But you've chosen that market, you're going after it, and you start asking yourself, where do they hang out? What associations and societies do they belong to? What clubs, what organizations, churches, what schools do they belong to? Where do they congregate? What networking groups do they hang out with? Okay? Where do these people go? So track them physically, where do they go? And find a way to show up there in some way. Sponsor the meal for their event. Provide a handout, a key value for them that leads them to you. Volunteer just to be a helper, just to know some people and learn your way. When I joined the National Speakers Association, and that's what this little microphone is on my lapel, I'm a past president of the National Speakers Association, which is about 3,000 or 4,000 professional speakers. No listeners, just speakers. But when we formed that association, there were about 200 of us. You know, when I joined. There were like 30 or 40 when they started the thing in 73. I joined in 1976. They had a couple hundred members. Now they have thousands of members. We own our own conference center in Tempe, Arizona. We've got sister organizations in England and Holland and Australia and, you know, all over the world. We have millions of dollars in a foundation that gives scholarships to students and professors in the field of communication. All this has grown out of a group of people getting together and swapping leads at first, you know, just a networking group. And the National Speakers Association, when I joined, I didn't know anybody. And there were a couple of hundred of them, and they were, some of them, big names, and a lot of them I'd never heard of in my life. And my heroes, the big names like Earl Nightingale and, you know, people like that, Norman Vincent Peale, Zig Ziglar was new. Those were the people that I saw there, and I thought, gee, I want to be around these people. So I went to the National Convention in Louisville, Kentucky. And I didn't have much money, so I couldn't do a full registration, so I had to get just a partial registration, which excluded a couple of the banquet meals. And during their big fancy banquet, I went across the street to a street vendor and bought a hot dog and came back and stood outside the door and listened to their banquet. Wow. And that was a big moment. I was excited just to be on the other side of the wall. And then when they came out, you know, I was talking to the ones that I had met already, and I started networking with them, and I started volunteering. Hey, can I help with the room setup? Hey, can I go, you know, find your speaker when he arrives at the hotel and guide him to the meeting room? Hey, can I help the audio-visual guy string some wires? Things like that. Can I introduce the speaker this afternoon? Do you have an introducer yet? Yeah, we're good for, okay. Next year I want to lead a panel. Can I be the facilitator? Yeah, put your name in the hat, you know. Well, the next year I did lead a panel. The next year I did introduce a speaker. 2 years later, I was nominated as a candidate for the board of directors. 3 years later, I was elected to the board of directors. For 10 years, I served on the board of directors, became the national president, was inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame, received the Lifetime Achievement Award they call the Cavett Award. Oh my gosh. And today I've done over 3,000 speeches for over 2,000 organizations all over the world, still going strong, loving every bit of it. But when I joined NSA, the National Speakers Association, I didn't know a soul. Okay? So you can choose a market and systematically own that market. First, surround them. Just show up wherever you can. Next, penetrate. Do something. Excuse me, can I hold the door for people while they're loading things into the expo? Sure. Great. And you start meeting people, and things start opening up. And you build one relationship, and you start collaborating with one person, and you get one little teeny tiny wisp of a customer. And you start building on that, and it grows and it grows and it grows. Okay? So first, isolate the market that you want, surround it, penetrate it, and then permeate it. Figure out how you can show up everywhere inside that market over the eons of time and just be sort of the person. Oh, you belong to the National Speakers. Well, you must know Jim Cathcart, right? So that can happen in any market. It's just a matter of systematic action based on that thought, okay? And we talked about cold calls. The premise you start with selects the conclusion you're going to reach. For example, my premise, sales is about persuading people to buy. Conclusion, what style of selling will I likely embrace? If I believe the purpose of selling, or that the practice of selling is about persuading people to buy, what will my style of selling likely be?
Harsh.
Yeah, forceful, harsh, old school, traditional, what's it going to take to sell you a car today?
Exactly.
Right?
I know you're
Yeah.
I know you're like
Okay? Premise. The purpose of selling is to make life better for people. And if I don't make a profit on it, I don't get to keep on doing it. So I'm worthy of my profit, and you are needing my product. You can benefit from it. What style of selling will I likely embrace? It's, yeah, consultative selling. It's what I call relationship selling. I wrote the first book by that title. See, if you want to be more intelligent about something, notice more of it. Intelligence is making distinctions, seeing patterns and principles that drive the patterns. And the more you understand those, the more everything else makes sense. And the more you can control those things. I believe that an organization is a living system. I believe CLU, I believe Huddle Campus, I believe your businesses and organizations are living systems, not machines. Not stacks of boxes. Not in the industrial era we talked about re-engineering the organization. Implication is that it was engineered in the first place. Yes? Okay, because you can't re-engineer what was not engineered. Okay? Engineering studies what discipline most of all? Physics. Okay? Medicine studies what discipline most of all? Biology. Okay, biology is studying living systems. Physics is studying forces of nature. Basically, you could say it's studying mechanical systems, but it also has implications on the other side. The point is, which foot is your weight resting on? In physics, it's on the industrial, and in medicine, it's on biology. It's on life, living systems. I believe organizations are living systems. If organizations had all the equipment they have, all the tools, all the legal contracts and everything else, but didn't have the people, would there be an organization? No. There'd be tools. There'd be the potential for an organization, but there would be no organization. Organization requires organisms. We are the organisms. We are the CBLF servers that are required for this computer. CBLF, carbon-based life forms, right? Carbon-based life form, people. So if an organization is a group of living beings committed to a common cause, following a common system or process, then an organization should be represented by something living rather than a stack of boxes or something mechanical. A tree does it for me. I think it makes sense. A tree sends out a root system seeking resources. So does an organization. If the organization does not connect with enough of the right types of resources, it dies. Okay? A tree sends out a growth system above ground seeking opportunity and bearing fruit. An organization sends out a marketing effort and a sales effort seeking opportunity and bearing fruit. What makes this tree, instead of just any tree, is its DNA. This one is an oak tree. If it were a pine, it would look different. It'd have a different DNA. How do you know whether something belongs on whether a particular leaf belongs on a particular tree? DNA. An oak leaf only grafts with an oak tree. A pine needle or a pine cone would only show up on a pine tree. Okay? Same thing's true with organizations. How do you know a particular person fits in your organization? They embrace the DNA. What's the DNA? The mission, the vision, the values, the standards, the beliefs. See, when you're real clear on what you stand for, what you care about, and why you're here, then you can tell who your tribe is. You can tell who belongs on your team, who's going to fit in and who's not. Because you could work at an organization for 40 years and still feel like an outsider to yourself and everyone around you. You can work in an organization for 1 hour and feel like family. If you embrace the mission, the vision, the values, and the beliefs. I had the privilege recently of speaking in Bali, Indonesia, at the Mulia Resort, M-U-L-I-A, at Nusa Dua in Bali. And it was over the top fabulous. They were rated by Condé Nast Traveler this past year. They were rated #1 Asian beach resort, #3 beach resort in the entire earth. Pretty cool, yes? They've got 2,000 employees. 400 and something managers, 125 executives. I was there to do a 6-hour training program for the 125 executives. Now think of what it takes to have #1 in the world ranking in a resort that cost billions, marble and crystal and onyx everywhere, fabulous people, well-dressed, totally well-behaved, honoring the guests and treating them like royalty. Think of the standards that are required. Let me go back. The standards that are required, the systems that have to be in place, the training that needs to happen again and again and again and again and again and again, and the rewards and recognition you have to put in place to make something like that. And they not only have that property, but several other properties throughout Asia. I did the training for them as a result of a referral from the Four Seasons right here, across the street. My son is the Director of Human Resources at the Four Seasons Westlake Village. So he's the guy who interviewed and hired 525 people that work there, and a few hundred or maybe a few thousand of their predecessors over the years that's been here. He started working there when they dug the hole to build the hotel. His name's Jim Cathcart also. So people see me and they say, are you the Jim Cathcart? Nah, but I know him. You know him? Yeah, I created him. What? Isidore Sharp created the Four Seasons organization. He's out of Toronto, Canada. He wrote a book recently called The Story of a Business Philosophy. Now notice, this is a hotel. Four Seasons. It's about a hotel chain, right? Or a hotel company. They don't own their hotels. They manage hotels. Other people own them. David Murdoch, Gold Foods, owns this hotel. But Four Seasons manages it. And they take over management before it's built. They say, if we're going to manage it, there are going to be pipes in the walls in a specific way so that this room doesn't hear the bathroom of that room. In other words, they're very, very meticulous about their standard systems, etc. Okay? So he writes a book years into his career when he's already touched the world in a profound way, The Story of a Business Philosophy. Not a hotel system, a business philosophy. One thing he says in the book is, I found, after I'd been in business for a long time, that at first I was, developing standards and systems and training people and recognizing and encouraging them. But once all that was in place and I had my team pretty much set and they were growing their own future, I found that my job changed. And my job after that was selling the vision, the mission, and the values. Telling the Four Seasons story again and again and again. What he does, he goes around the world to these wonderful resorts. They get all the personnel together, and he tells them why they matter and what a difference they're making and why these concepts are in place to make this different from the Ritz-Carlton and this different from the Marriott and so forth. Walt Disney found the same thing to be true. Once he had created Disneyland and done all those things there, he found that his main job was to be the spiritual leader, so to speak, and to sell the vision, the mission, and the values, the beliefs and the dream. That's your job. As an entrepreneur, starting out, all these things are your job. This should be driving those. By the way, if your vision, mission, and values don't drive the systems you're creating, the systems you're creating will not sustain the dream you have in place. It's got to show up in everything you do. Got to. So what percent of time do you spend on each effort? The universal answer applies. By the way, no matter what the question, this answer works. You ready? That's a pretty good answer, right? If it'll answer every question? Every question, no matter what. The answer is, it depends. You say, no. Some things just have an answer. Someone says, what's your name? Depends. Who are you? Oh, you're with the IRS. My name is Matt Forger. Yes. Okay? It depends. The percent of time that you spend on each effort depends basically on which one needs you now. You know, it's kind of like if you neglect your family, it will start interfering. The bad relation with your family will start interfering with everything else you do. If you neglect your health, it'll start showing up in your relations with your family. If you neglect your finances, it'll start showing up in your health. If you see what I mean? It's all connected. So choose your percentage, not permanently, but temporarily. And just know it's a matter of stepping from one rock to the other until you get across the water. Right? Okay? And growing your inner circle. See, we're not in this alone. We're not. None of us are. And we need to use all our strength. This is my friend Carl Klessig, whose wife was recently mayor of Westlake Village. Carl and Felipa have recently moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. By the way, she was the one who spearheaded the idea for this beautiful bridge right next to us, which was mostly paid for with government money as opposed to national government money as opposed to local money. But they had the plan pretty much paid for when they started to build the bridge, and the federal government said, no, let us fund that. Because they wanted to be able to check it off and say, see what we did? See? Told you we were good. Huh? Anyway, that's a little side story. But anyway, use all your strength. Carl is climbing Tiwanaut in the Grand Tetons. Now you see Carl, you see his red helmet and his backpack. What else do you see? A rope. This rope, you notice, is taut, which indicates what? Somebody on the other end depends with their life on what Carl does next. Uh-oh. Andy Watson's on the other end of that rope. And a few minutes before, Carl was on the other end of Andy's rope. There's always somebody at the end of your rope, and you're always at the end of somebody else's. Nobody's in this alone. We've got an inner circle of people that we get all of our major results through. I think it helps to know who yours are. So think about specifically the names of the people who are the 5 to 8 people that constitute your personal inner circle. You've got a lot more people in your life that would be outer circle or different types of circles. But in your innermost, these are the people I've got to have there in order to get the results I'm able to get. That's only a handful of people. And that matters a lot what this relationship between you, the acorn, and them, the person, happens to be. So that relationship needs 3 essentials to be at optimum. The 3 essentials are, both of you should be committed to the success of the relationship. Yes? If it's one way, that can only be temporary. I mean, it's fine for one person to carry the main load in a relationship for a while, but they can't perpetuate that. It's got to be shared over time, right? Open communication. The truth must be absolutely okay. Welcome at all times. Tactfully, but welcome at all times. If the truth is bad news, it must travel very, very fast. Because bad news needs to be delivered as quickly as possible so it can be mediated and become good news, right? Or neutralized. And open communication means praise is readily given. And that feedback, if it's criticism, is given in a loving way, not in a harmful way or a power-driven way. And clear agreements. You've got to know what you expect from each other, and whether it's reasonable or not, you need to know what they expect from you and what you expect from them. Okay? So what habits are you going to need? This is me with my hiking group, hiking Lang Ranch. What habits do you need in order to have the future you want? That, I think, is a big part of your homework. What habits do you need so that you ask yourself, how would the person I intend to become do the work I'm about to do? How would the person I'd like to be handle this situation? So the more often you ask that daily question, the more you'll find yourself achieving the kind of entrepreneurial success you want. By the way, before I conclude here, I want to announce something. Friday, May 1st, in this room, from 3 to 5 p.m., the publisher of Selling Power magazine, Gerhard Schwantner, and I will be doing sort of a panel discussion. And we're going to be talking about the history of motivational training. How's it evolved over the years? What does it mean? What's the value of it? Who are the players? Who have been the primary thought leaders, etc. So we're going to be talking about that. And from 3 to 5 p.m. that day, we're going to be filming, and we would like to have a studio audience of people like you. So if you'd like to be here, just make sure you let us know you're coming. So register, but just let them know or let me know, and be here between 3 and 5, and we will be starting the camera at 3 o'clock and shutting it off promptly at 5. And probably will not cater it, so don't come hungry. And afterwards, knock yourself out, have fun. But you're invited to that. My main goal tonight was to walk you through a thought process that made you more aware of what matters to you, and helped you realize that what matters to you is the thing that ought to be driving everything you do. Your life ought to be a reflection of what you care about. And if it's not, you need to tailor your life. Take it in a little here, let it out a little there, change it slowly, but change it. It's like a tree. It says, I want to grow over there. Well, it doesn't uproot itself and grow over there. It branches out and sends a little runner over there and starts growing a root system that shifts the trunk to the space where it wants to be. Start growing in the direction of where you want to be, and let what you care about drive every decision you make. If you do that, your life and your business will be a reflection of the best version of you. The person you'd like to be will be the one in charge. And I will be privileged to know that maybe I helped nurture that along the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.